I think most of you would know about this InterSkill and part of the first session. In case you were not part of the first session, that's okay, because we're going to cover most of the hands-on session in today's class. So InterSkill is a group of like-minded people, part of the corporate, and we just had this initiative to help our fellow colleagues with whatever knowledge that we have. So that's the whole agenda of InterSkill. We are not commercial. It is all done out of self-interest and to help the community. So over to Ravi Ranjan, who is one of the coach today, and along with Prashant Kumar. We had a wonderful first session, and I'm sure that the second session is going to be much more beneficial as we're going to have a lot of hands-on today. Over to you, Mr. Ravi Ranjan.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Can someone confirm whether you're able to hear me, see the screen properly?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you all for joining today's session. This is the second session and the last session in Agile Scrum training. So thank you for taking time to be with us, and we thank you all those who joined the first session. And I especially want to thank all the people who kind of sent the assignments. A few people took this very seriously, and they sent the assignment given the last week, and very good use cases, user stories they came up with. Okay, so today what we have is a fully jam-packed schedule. I want you to be very attentive, and at the same time I want you to be actively participating in the breakout sessions. So what we covered. So let me give a brief about what we covered in the last session, and then we will go into the second session. So in the last class, we saw what is Agile Manifesto, and then the Scrum framework, the Scrum team, and the product vision, product backlog, DOD, user stories, and with a little bit of hands-on on the Jira. So we consider this Scrum training, if we consider this as an Agile way, so the first sprint that was done last week, we covered these topics. And I hope you have gone through the PowerPoint that is sent to you, which we shared during the sprint one or the last week. So Agile Manifesto for software development is basically where we become very agile, where individuals and interactions take precedence over processes and tools. The working software takes priority over comprehensive documentation. We give more value to customer collaboration than contract negotiation. And we give priority to responding to change than following a fixed plan. And we saw that Scrum is a process framework. It is not a process or a methodology per se. It is a framework. It is very lightweight, and it is empirical. There are three principles of empiricism we saw last class: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So we are very transparent to the customer, and then the customer have the right to inspect the product, and then we adapt to the changing environment and changing requirements. And we also compare this with the waterfall method, how in the waterfall method we go from requirements to design to development and to test and to production support and maintenance, whereas we do all of these things in each sprint. A sprint is a 2-week or 3-week a fixed time frame in which we will apply all these to bring up a small product increment that can be tested and tried and used in the production environment. So we also saw that Scrum is a iterative and incremental process. We deliver increment by increment, and we loop iteratively till we get into perfection or the best output the customer wants. Scrum has some foundational values and principles. Everybody should have enough courage to say yes, no, what it works, what it doesn't work, and we are very focused on our goal. The team is totally committed, and they respect each other, and there is an openness and transparency among the team members. So the Scrum framework is basically entire Scrum framework can be summarized in this slide. We have 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 4 meetings. That's all the Scrum is. We saw what are those 3 roles in our last session. Product owner owns the product. He is the one who gives the requirements. He is the one who evaluates the acceptance criteria and finally accepts the product increment. He is our go-to person for any business clarifications. A Scrum Master is a facilitator, a servant leader, a coach who will help the team to remove the impediments to make sure that they are able to deliver their product and will be able to work out their constraints, and they gel together as one team and they follow the Scrum principles. That is the role of the Scrum Master. Scrum Master is not a project manager who takes down the notes or takes down the effort deviations. Does ensures that the product development responsibility and the delivery lies with the team. Scrum Master is only a facilitator, a coach to make them perform their best. So that the dev team or the team is the team of all the resources that work on a product increment. So it includes devs, it includes testers, it includes business analysts, it includes architects. Everybody that works on a product increment are called the dev team. So generally, the dev team does not mean it is only the developers. That is a phrase that we generally use in SDLC. But the dev team here means all the team members that are working, including different roles they play. So Scrum framework has only these 3 roles. Any other role must fit into these roles. So we don't have any role called project manager. We don't have any role called architect. We don't have any other roles. Everybody is part of the dev team. So some frameworks, some tools which use Scrum might use a different terminology, but the terminology that we used in this presentation is basically based upon the original Scrum guide. So the dev team basically represents all the people. So, so that's the 3 roles that we have, the 3 artifacts: the product backlog and the sprint backlog and the product increment. Product backlog is the one which has all the requirements which are refined day by in continuous fashion. And we take a subset of product backlog, move it into sprint backlog. Sprint backlog basically contains the items that we are going to implement or execute in this sprint. And then, so after we are done with the sprint, we work on the sprint backlog. Whatever passes the done, the definition of done, whatever passes the user acceptance criteria become part of the product increment. Any item, any backlog item that is not fully implemented will not go to product increment. They will go back into product backlog. We will refine it again and see that we will be able to take it in the next sprints or not. So by definition, product increment is something which is fully done as per the DOD definition of done, which is ready to move to production where people can test it and use it. So, so these are the 3 artifacts, and there will be there are 4 meetings which we will see in today. Sprint backlogs basically contains user stories. User stories we saw we have to follow invest principle. We have to follow a SMART principle. So and today we are going to see about the 4 meetings and also about Agile estimations and the release planning and how we track the project. And we see a little bit about DevOps. And very interestingly, we are going to have breakout sessions. So this is a to-do list for today. So we are going to execute this Scrum training also in Agile way. So now we pulled all these 8 user stories from the product backlog, put it into the sprint 2. So we'll go with one by one. This color coding is because the green will be taken by Prashant and purple will be taken by Joseph or Ruth. So we have different people working on the team, working on these user stories or in these tasks. So with that, so let us go into today's set of tasks. This is going to be very detailed. It's very tough subject. Today we are going to deal because Agile Estimations is quite complex. I want you to be very attentive and follow through. So whatever the questions you have, please type in the chat window. Prashant will answer those things, and during the break time, we can take some of those questions. Okay, so with that, let's move to the next thing. So now we will discuss about the Scrum meetings. We moved from to-do to progress. The Scrum meetings. As I told, there are 4 important meetings in the Scrum. That is all the meetings that we have in the Scrum model. The first is sprint planning meeting. Sprint planning meeting happens at the beginning of the sprint. The input is our product backlog. Product backlog is, as I told you, is a set of all the requirements that we need to do for the product. So, and then we take the product backlog, we see what are the risks, what are the constraints, and what is our velocity, what is our capacity, how many I can execute with the current team that I have. So we will come to that velocity later. So based upon my team capacity, and I will evaluate all the high priority backlog, product backlog items. As we saw in our last class, product backlog is an ordered set. All the top user stories or top items are those which are elaborated well. They are high priority. They are to be implemented in the next sprint. So we will pull those things. We will discuss those user stories. We will expand those user stories. We will estimate those user stories, and we will basically come up with a goal. This is the sprint goal. Our output is a sprint goal. Sprint goal is a set of user stories we are committing to deliver in this sprint. That's it. Pretty much simple. A sprint goal is a set of user stories we are committing in this to deliver in this sprint as part of product increment. That's a sprint goal. So the sprint planning is basically an exercise where we will come together as a team, understand the user stories, estimate them, and make a commitment that together as a team, we will deliver these user stories. We will also discuss how we are going to deliver, what architecture we should use, what design we should use, or what tools we use. And all that become part of the sprint planning. And once the sprint planning is done, we will take the set of user stories which become part of the sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is the picked up user stories that we are committing to deliver in this sprint to meet the sprint goal. Okay, so in the sprint planning, what we do is we also divide the user stories into tasks, break down the user stories into smaller tasks. For example, we saw in some our previous example, there is a user story. Like in this, as a prospective student, I want to find out the credentials of the board members of this university so that I can take a wise decision. That's my user story. So now I need to design a UI where I get all this data. I need to have a service layer where it can go and get the data from the database. And then there is some functional testing to be done. Then I have to do some integration testing so that it won't disturb others. So all these are a set of tasks that I need to do in order to implement this user story. So user story, as I told you last time, is a one-liner in a stick, yellow stick. But behind that, once we come into sprint planning, we have to expand that and we put it into the tool, especially some tools like a Confluence are there, where we actually input all the detailed requirements, how the UI should look like, what kind of database tables need to be implemented, what's the kind of service layer to be implemented, what are the test cases, and all that become part of the expansion of the user story, and each one becomes a task. In the sprint planning, because the entire team is there, the designers are there, testers are there, developers are there, we all sit together to break down this user story into smaller tasks so that we can execute together as a team. Generally, a task is something that is less than 8 hours, which can be easily delivered and measured. So in that sprint planning, so what we said is we will pick up from the product backlog. pick up all the user stories and expand the user stories and break them into smaller tasks so that it is easy to estimate. Okay, so and then I'll come to the estimation part later. Daily Scrum. Daily Scrum is basically a stand-up meeting, a meeting strictly maximum 15 minutes. Every day, the team huddles together near a notice board where they stick all these yellow stickers of their user stories and then move them across the board from to do to in progress to done status. So this daily Scrum meeting is owned by the dev team. It is not owned by the Scrum Master. It is facilitated by the Scrum Master. Scrum Master may or may not attend these meetings, but all the dev members must attend this meeting because we need to show progress to each one of us. Every one of us will show progress to others. It is a team affair. So we basically generally meet at the same time, in the same place, to bring some consistency, and everybody in the team, in the dev team, must answer these 3 questions. What did I do yesterday? What did I deliver yesterday? Secondly, what will I do today? And thirdly, if I have any impediments, any constraints to do my work today. So these 3 questions everybody should answer. Everybody should say, okay, yesterday I finished the UI of this about page. Today I am going to do the registration page, but I need a database guy to finish his database tables before I can finish my service layer. So everybody should tell what they have done yesterday, what they will do today, and there are dependencies and impediments to do the work so that together as a team, we resolve the impediments, we help each other, we understand where we are going, how fast we are going, how well we are going towards achieving our sprint goal. Okay, so this meeting is a daily meeting. There are no other status meeting. In general waterfall method, we have a weekly status meeting, we have a monthly status meeting, but here we have a daily Scrum meeting where we all need to attend every day 15 minutes. The third important meeting in this framework is sprint review meeting. Sprint review meeting happens at the end of the sprint. Generally, we do around 4 hours of this review meeting for 4-week sprint. The purpose is to check the product increment. It is check what we committed to the customer as a part of product increment, as a part of sprint goal, whether we achieved that or not. It is a QA, whether we have to see the requirements, we have to see the product increment and say as a team whether this is good to go to production or not. So that is the purpose of the review meeting, sprint review meeting. Who attends this meeting? Everybody. The dev team will come and explain what they have done. The product owner will come and see whether it meets all the acceptance criteria and the DOD definition or not. The Scrum Master basically facilitates, and the stakeholders and customers also can be present in the review meeting because at the end of the day, they are the people who are going to use this product increment. So all the stakeholders, customers, dev team, Scrum Master, product owner, everybody is present in this 4-hour meeting to examine the product increment and accept it as part of the product. The fourth and the last meeting that we have in this Scrum model is sprint retrospection. Sprint retrospection. Retrospection is basically to understand the process that we used in this 2 weeks or 3 weeks in this sprint, whether it is working or not, whether I need to change any process, tune my process, or what I can do well in the future. So this is also done at the end of the sprint, generally 3 hours for a 4-week sprint. And this is to find the process improvements. The previous meeting, the review meeting, is to check the product increment, what goes into the production. This is to check the process improvements. This is related to process. Okay. So who attends this? All the stakeholders, the customers, the dev team, the Scrum Master, and the product owner. So basically, this is predominantly by the dev team and the Scrum Master to see what process tunings I can do in order to make my velocity increase, make my product better, make my life easy, and deliver more. And how can we improve in the next sprint? So 3 things everybody should answer in this meeting. what worked well for them. So, okay, we had a very good requirements that worked well for us. We had test cases beforehand that worked well for us. And we had the good team, intelligent, smart team that worked well for us. Or the process is good that we followed a detailed process of expanding the use case, user stories that work well for. So you have to define what worked well for us in the process. Secondly, you should also tell what did not work well for you. What were the things, the bottlenecks for your progress? How? And thirdly, what are the improvement areas? Do we need to change some process? Do we need to bring in some more adjustments, some more controls? What improvements we can do as a team to deliver more, to improve our results in the next sprint? The Scrum team members make actionable commitments. It is not something that we all just go sit over a coffee and then say, oh yeah, this is wonderful. We did work well. We have worked hard, somehow able to deliver. So this is not a chai pe chacha meeting. This is a serious meeting to discuss what process improvements we can do together as a team so that continuously we improve ourselves, our processes, that we can deliver more to the customer. So sprint retrospection is very important because this changes the process and this improves our effectiveness in the future sprints. So we said that these four are the major things that we have. The sprint planning, we do take around 8 hours, entire team sits to plan for the sprint, and then we have 15 minutes daily scrums, and then there is a 4 hours sprint review to check the product increment, and the sprint retrospection to check our process and fine tune our process. So review is for product, retrospection is for our process. So this is all related with that sprint. Once the sprint is done, or sometime in between also, we do backlog grooming. Backlog grooming is basically a product backlog refinement process. So as I told you, product backlog has a set of all the requirements or all the user stories that we are going to implement as a product part of this product. And now I have to keep on refining this set of user stories and basically to refine them so that I can pick up them in the next sprint. So what I need to do is I need to remove uncertainties, I need to remove unknowns, need to go back to the end users and get more clarifications. Sometimes we don't understand, we ask them to elaborate, and we break down the big stories into small stories which are implementable, which are measurable, which are easy to handle, which are estimatable. So as I told you, user story needs to be achievable and measurable. We saw that invest principle. Okay, so in this refinement process, in this grooming process, what we do is we basically break down the big stories into smaller stories, and we prioritize them based upon the market needs, based upon our capacity, and we prioritize them based upon, so what is the customer demanding, and based upon the risks. So once this grooming is done, what happens is we have a refined backlog. In other words, readjusted, a sorted list of user stories. So this we will take around 1 to 2 hours in each sprint to refine this backlog so that next sprint planning will be much easier and faster. So it increases efficiency, it helps us to do estimations well, and it helps us to do an effective sprint planning. If the user stories are not detailed enough, we do not know how to estimate them properly. So if we don't estimate properly, the whole planning will go for a toss. So it helps us to maintain a healthy backlog and remove the dependencies or define well-defined dependencies. And then we also can define the risks and elaborate acceptance criteria. So basically, this grooming process is basically refining our user stories and removing the uncertainties and breaking them into smaller stories so that we can do better estimation, we can do better planning in the next sprint. So this PBR is an important meeting also in this Scrum framework. So in the Scrum framework, what we saw is we have 4 important meetings, including grooming, 5 important meetings. The first one is a sprint planning. Second, the daily Scrum. Thirdly, sprint review. And fourthly, sprint retrospection. And fifthly, backlog grooming. So these are the most important and the only meetings that we see in this Scrum framework. So you need to understand the difference between review and retrospection and the timelines that we generally have. It's very important that we know what meetings we should attend. If you do not attend those meetings, then you will not be able to contribute to the team properly. And the Scrum Master basically makes sure the team attends the meetings properly. So he may or may not be part of those meetings, but he must make sure that the team, the required people attend those meetings so that we progress in our project. Okay, so this is the first thing that we have done. The second one, now we will come to Agile estimations. Agile estimations is very important topic, and we have different ways of estimating, and we will see how best we can learn these estimations today. Okay, so in the Agile estimations, basically we have 2 levels of estimations, as we know that we saw this in the last class. So we all start with a theme. The product owner, the sponsor, comes with a theme and explains the theme to the product owner, and the product owner breaks down that into a set of features or a set of epics. And in the set of epics, they do a very t-shirt sizing of these epics. Okay, this epic, this feature is a small size. This is a large size. What does small and large means? We don't have any clear definition. It is on a relative measurements, very approximate. So if, for example, a pre-admission feature is a small module because it is only a static pages. An admission is probably a large one. It's a complex one. There are so many rules, conditions, so many things to be done. Whereas maybe a faculty management is probably a medium size. Like that, at the epic level, they define t-shirt sizes of the features or the epics. Then we know that product owner takes those epics and breaks down into user stories after talking with stakeholders. And then user stories are measured or estimated in story points. We will come to that later. And as we saw in sprint planning, this user story is further divided into tasks, day-to-day tasks. And this is estimated in hours, especially the task should be not more than 8 hours in general. So if a task is greater than 8 hours, break that into subtasks. So something that I can deliver today. So tomorrow I can tell, okay, this is what I have delivered. This task we have delivered. Together we finish all the tasks so that I can move this story to the done status. So tasks are estimated in hours. User stories are estimated in story points, and features are estimated in t-shirt sizes. So how the Agile estimations are different from traditional estimations? You need to really understand this. So in the traditional estimations are absolute estimations. It's like you put an apple on the top of a weighing scale and it will show you it is okay, it is 50 grams or it is 100 grams. So it gives you the actual weight. So traditionally in our SDLC model, we estimate our effort, we estimate our schedule based upon some organizational parameters, and we come up with, okay, this will be done in 33 hours. We don't know whether it can be really done in 33 hours or not, but the model that we have estimates accurately or clear exact hours or the days that are required. And estimates are often taken as fixed targets and treated as commitments. If the project manager says the whole project takes 200 hours, that's it. It is written on the stone. You cannot change that. If you change that, you have to give an explanation why this is estimated. That is called as effort deviation. And then it will go back and forth on discussions and debates why you have estimated less or why you have estimated more, and why you are able to achieve or not able to achieve, what is your deviation, and all that questions will come because you are estimating and taking a commitment that you will do the work within that estimate. So generally, the estimations are done by the PMs or the PLs, and with the help of the customers, with the help of the senior management and organizational assets, we give them an estimate. And once we have the sign off by the customer, it becomes a contract, a binding document. So this is how we traditionally think about the estimations. Whereas agile estimations are a t-shirt sizing estimations. That means approximate estimations, or what we call as a relative estimation. Okay, this feature or this user story compared with story 5 is a small size. Okay, so and it takes maybe like 3 points. So what are the story points? Story points will come later. So these are basically a relative estimations, and we expect there is a deviation. Okay, I thought this is a medium t-shirt size user story. By the time I implement, it became a large story. It took more story points, it took more effort. That's okay. So we keep changing the size as we evolve, because the requirements are not frozen. In the traditional method, the requirements must be frozen. Okay, at least 90% of the requirements are frozen, 10% deviation here and there, but we treat them as frozen requirements. Whereas in Agile methodology, the requirements keep on changing. The requirements keep on evolving. So we keep changing the estimations also, and that is an accepted criteria, accepted work. Because in the traditional, if you change, they won't accept. You have to give so many explanations. Whereas here, if you change, that is an accepted phenomena. And estimates are basically the best forecast. A forecast might be correct, might not be correct, or it is just our best guess. So forecast is just like our weather forecast. Today, the weather department's weather.com, we say it is going to be thunderstorms. So we expected, okay, there might be thunderstorms, but unfortunately, most of the time, when they predict thunderstorms, we get hot sun, or we don't get any showers at all. So based upon the best knowledge that they have, the parameters that they have, the sensor they have, they forecast, which might be good, might not be good. But as you refine your process, the more sensors you add, more artificial intelligence you put in, your forecast becomes a lot more predictable, not more acceptable. So it's a best forecast. That's what we do in Agile also. So in the first sprint, your forecast might totally go for a toss. But as the same team executes sprint after the sprint after the sprint, there your estimations become a lot more clearer and a lot more predictable, and in a lot more to the reality. So here, in the entire team is involved in the estimation process. Entire team is involved in the estimation process, whereas in the traditional model, mostly the PM and PL, they do the estimations and they rub all the estimations upon the dev team. That's how the developers feel. So the PM, he doesn't have any knowledge about what is happening on the ground. He does some calculations based upon organizational Excel file, and we are struggling. That is a common complaint of many developers. That's why they are changing this model into Agile estimations. Today, you are part of the estimation process. So you cannot crib on anybody else. You have to crib on yourself. So as a team, if I am not mature enough, my colleague helps me. We together come with the best estimate. Because we did the estimate, we have more commitment. Because you see, my word, I gave the word, I will work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, because I don't want to become fool saying that I will deliver, I did not deliver. So it brings the ownership more to the team. Yeah, this is a fundamental difference between traditional and Agile estimations. Traditionally, what we do is there are many methods. One popular method is SMC, simple, medium, complex model. The other method is functional point analysis. There is another model called feature point analysis. But for our today's discussion, let us take this SMC model. SMC model basically, it defines all the work or all the use cases, how we categorize them into simple, how we categorize them into medium, what are the tasks that will be categorized as complex. So for example, if you see in this table, if you have a JSP to be developed, a JavaScript page to be developed, then if it has a few entry, only few elements, I call it as a simple. And if it is more complex data entries there, I call it as a complex JSP page, a web page developed using JSP, a medium complexity. The highly large complexity is there are a lot of validations, a lot of page layouts, a lot of display validations are there. This is a complex. Similarly, how I define servlets as simple, medium, complex, and how I develop EJBs and define them as simple, medium, and complex. So once I have these definitions, we also get a table generally from the organization for each of these type of items, delivery items. For the simple, medium, complex, what are the efforts required? If the JSP is a simple one, it takes approximately 4 hours. If the JSP is a medium complex, it takes 8 hours. Like that, then organization publishes a standard set of guidelines. So these guidelines, where do I get from? Based upon the previous projects. We, organization quality assurance team, basically collects all the data from all the executed projects, the successful projects, takes the parameters out of it and nudges the data to come up with, okay, so many projects we have executed, are 100 projects in Java, and based upon all the line items that are delivered, this is how they have executed. This is their actual effort. So they basically average them and give us a general guidelines, which is generally followed as an important guideline for estimating future projects. So the general guidelines, the checklists, and the templates are developed by the organizational QA department, so which becomes a part of the organization process assets. If you are a CMM level 5 company, you will know that the organization continuously collects the data and nudges the data to come up with these templates to help us to do better estimations. In the simple terms, each line item is defined as either simple or medium and complex. Based upon the type of line item and based upon complexity, I will know how many hours it will take. So what my task is to punch in all my line items in an Excel file and define them as simple, medium, complex, and I get these values and I get a total estimate. So after you put all your user stories and the tasks into an Excel file, and then you add these complexities to them, you will approximately know how many hours you need to spend to execute these user stories or implement these user stories. So these hours now basically are put into Microsoft project to develop a schedule. See, this is number of hours, but not everybody is skilled to do all this work. So a part of that work hours belongs to the testers, part of that belongs to the devs, part of that belongs to design. So we will assign those many hours to each of these resources in a Microsoft project plan. This is a general schedule that is developed. So you input, okay, Jennifer is a database designer. I put she is allocated 100% to this project. And similarly, Sam Watson is a developer. So I put some developers here, I put some designers here, and then I put some testers here and allocate these many hours to each of them. And I also put dependencies. So after the analysis phase only, my design starts. After the design, after half of my development is done, I can start my testing. So we put it in a waterfall method based upon the constraints of the resources, their skill set, the total effort required by them for each of those phases. When I put that, I get a start date and an end date of this project. So the start date and end date are basically given based upon the total effort calculated and based upon the constraints of the modules based upon the availability of the resources. So once we develop this project plan, we submit to the customer. Customer freezes the project plan. So we kickstart on the start date, and then we go in the waterfall method to deliver the product increment or the product. So any deviation from this is basically needs to be explained, and we have to go back to the customer, borrow more time, explain why it has happened, not has happened, and all this to be done in the traditional estimation model, because this is the model that we are committing. These are the estimations that are correct and we will deliver. Whereas Agile forecast or Agile estimations, as I told you, are rough estimations or forecasts based upon the complexity, effort, and size, and what we are going to include, what we are going to exclude in this sprint, and what are the assumptions that we are going with. So what are our agreements and disagreements also we will see. So doing product estimation, Agile estimations is very simple. So now we already brought in all the potential user stories to estimate. Okay, the product owner basically reads out the user story, explains to the team, okay, we are going to build a university management system, and today we are going to plan for the admission module. In the admission module, the first task is pre-admission, qualifying for the admission. Okay, in the qualification, we should ask the people to input their degrees, their mark sheets, their history, their job history, their family history. All this must be done. Okay, the team understands. They keep on asking the questions till they understand the user story, and then team estimates. So team estimates says, so one guy says, okay, this is it takes 3 points. The other person says it takes 5 story points. So everybody will again discuss, and then why the deviations are there. One guy is saying it takes only 1 story point. The other guy is saying 10 story points, and then we will discuss again, estimate, and then we will repeat this process till everybody comes to a consensus. Because after one round, again, the product owner explains the people who are estimating differently because they are not understanding the story in the same way. So he will try to clarify the doubts, and then that's how we will together make the estimations. So estimations model, as I told you, is a rough estimation or a relative estimation. These are not commitments. These are our initial forecast. This is based upon the experience and expertise. So this is, we see a nice coffee cups here, and we see small, medium, and large. We understand, okay, a large cup, coffee cup. If you go to a Starbucks, you want to have a coffee, you say, okay, give me a large cup. And you know that he brings that cup to you. And you know what is a small cup. Generally, you take small coffee cup every day morning. But okay, today you had a fight with your wife, you fight with your boss, then you want to distress yourself, you want a large cup. Okay, so a large coffee cup is a lot more, or maybe double or 1.5 times the small cup. It doesn't know, I don't know. I have been using coffee for the last 20 years. I don't know when I say a large cup, when I go to Starbucks, whether they will put 250 ml or 300 ml or 200 ml, I don't know. I only know that it is, more than the small, and it helps me to, sip through for an hour and relax. So these estimations are relative. A large user story is maybe twice the complex of a small user story, or a medium is 1.5 times the complex of a small story. So just like in real life, you see, we don't really do exact estimations. A real life, we don't do a real estimation. Suppose you are cooking. So how much spices you put, how much karam you put in a curry, you don't know, just a spoon. You just put some to 1 spoon, half spoon, again you see, again you put some more. Because in real life, most of the things you do are a very rough estimation, not an exact estimation. So also in Agile estimations, as you do this rough estimation day in and day out, sprint after the sprint, without knowing exact value, whether you'll be able to deliver or not. That's how where we mature as a team. So we also do an intelligent forecast, not a blind forecast. So how do we do an intelligent forecast? Basically, we have 3 parameters: effort, how much effort probably it might require, and what is the complexity of this user story, and then what is uncertainty, how much I know clearly, how much I don't know clearly. So based upon these 3 parameters, I estimate, do a rough estimate. If it is little effort and little complex and little uncertain, then I say it takes 1 story point. This is slightly more effort is required, I make it as a 3 story points. Okay, and if I see it's more complex and more effort is required, I say it's a 5 story point. If I have very complex, it is a 8 story point. So it is a relative sizing. A story point is basically unitless. Story point does not mean 1 story point equivalent to 1 day or 3 story points equal to 3 days. So we never calculate the story points in terms of effort or hours. It is calculated in terms of functions or function. It is a very close to functional point analysis. A lot of you may not know what is a functional point analysis, but don't worry. So story point is basically what is the functions, how many functions I am delivering. Maybe okay, this user story has 4 functions to be delivered. This admission module has 4 tasks to be delivered, 4 business functions to be delivered. So that's how we estimate. So our story point is basically number of function points were delivered, and we estimate based upon a relative sizing, not an absolute sizing. So one technique they use to do Agile estimations is planning poker. Planning poker is one estimation technique mostly used in the Agile. Planning poker is basically everybody is given a set of play cards or poker cards. So I think everybody knows this poker cards, right? So I can show you this poker card. This is okay. This is like 1. I don't know whether you're able to see this or not. This is 1. This is 2. Okay, this is 3. This is 5. This is 8. So every team member in the dev team is given these poker cards. So and every card has a number. It's 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 13, 21. This is called a Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series is basically a series of the third number is an addition of first 2 numbers. Fourth number is an addition of second 2 numbers. 1 plus 2, 3, 2 plus 3, 5, 3 plus 5, 8, 8 plus 5, 13, like that. So this Fibonacci series, basically the logic behind Fibonacci series is, it is very easy to distinguish between a largely deviated item. So if you carry a 1 kg weight and a 2 kg weight, you can clearly tell, okay, this is 2 kg, this is 1 kg, even though you may not know, this is double the weight of this one. But if you are given a 1 kg and 1.1 kg weight, you will get confused. Okay, maybe this is more, this is more. So in the number you are estimating, there should be difference. It should be more so that you can estimate or forecast clearly or categorize them into correct bucket. So they started using this Fibonacci series to estimate the the user stories in Agile methodology. So what we do in planning poker is basically we all sit around a table, the entire team. The facilitator, probably the product owner or Scrum master or the senior most guy in the team, anybody can do. He reads out the user story. Okay, this is the user story. We are going to see whether we can take in this sprint or not. So, and then he moderates, he explains, okay, what this user story, this admission module, we need to get their inputs, we need to get their credentials, and we need to get their fees, and then submit. So it has 5 functions, it has 4 pages to be developed, it may require so much to be changed in the back end. So all that discussion happens. Okay, then everybody will think in his mind, okay, this looks to be a simple one. Somebody who is very experienced might think, okay, this is a simple one, I did so many times. Somebody who is a junior thinks, okay, this is a very complex one. Okay, I will give a 13 point to this. Somebody average guy says, okay, I think it takes around 5 points. So everybody calculates in mind how many story points, how many functional points this user story has. So then the facilitator will say, okay, let us take a vote. So everybody will take their card and put it face down. And then, okay, so after everybody does estimation, after all the cards are done, down, face down, then the facilitator will say, okay, show your value. So everybody will open and show their value. So one guy is showing 3, one guy is showing 5, one guy is showing 8, one guy is showing 1. So now what happens is nobody is agreeing that this story is 1 point or 3 point or 5 point or 8 point. So what the facilitator will do is, okay, first let us take the extreme guys. Okay, one guy. Okay, tell me why you think it is only one story point. So he will give his explanation. And he, at the same time, he will ask the extreme, the other guy, 8-point guy. Okay, why do you think that it takes 8 story points? So he will give his explanation. I thought this is very complex. There is so much of logic, blah, blah. Then he will explain. Okay, the one guy did not take all the tasks into consideration. The 8 guy thought too much about that, or whatever it is. He will explain all the things. The team discusses again, and then again they go for a voting. So basically, again they will put it face down. They think through the story again, and again he will call for a vote. Okay, now with the new information, okay, what do you think will be the estimate? Again, everybody will put their card, open the cards, and so now everybody between 3 and 5, 3 and 5. Okay, so maybe we can have like that 2-3 rounds of explanation of the user story will be given, so that everybody, the whole team, comes to a consensus that this story, user story, is a 5-point story. So that is how we estimate. Basically, it is user story points are not effort hours. It is the function points. How much function point? In the reality, what we do is we cannot take any apps. We need to have a reference board. So organization generally gives you some guidelines. Okay, if it is a minor change to UI, it is a 1 story point. If it is a minor bug fix, it is 1 story point. If it is a building a new simple UI, it is a 5 story point. It is a test case, it is a 3 story point. Some kind of initial set of descriptions or line items are given to estimate story points. Based upon this knowledge, we will do our sprint planning. We will estimate the user stories and commit those user stories. After 2-3 sprints, we will know, okay, this I estimated to be 5 points, but it is not really 5. Now I will change it to 3 points. So this table we can refine, and the estimation model becomes more and more easy and fine-tuned as we do this planning poker together. So any story you think it is more than 13 points must be broken down into smaller stories. So basically your estimation will be between 1 to 8. 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. So that's all the basically the planning we need to do. So the planning poker methodology of doing these estimations is basically to come up with a team consensus based upon mutual discussion and understanding, and it is pointless or it is unitless. One story point may transfer to be a 1-day work or not, it doesn't matter, but it transfers to a function point. Okay. So once we are done with the estimation, the user stories are pulled from product backlog to sprint backlogs, and then number of user stories, how many I can execute in this sprint, depends upon the velocity of the team. Velocity basically means the number of stories that I can deliver, or number of story points is the number of story points delivered per sprint. Okay, so let me correct this. Velocity is the number of story points. Okay, so number of story points delivered per sprint is basically the velocity. So we will take a 5 minutes quick break, and then we will go into this velocity. And you can punch in your questions in the chat window, and Prashant will help to answer those questions. We'll take a 5 minutes break quickly. If you are wanting to take a break, you can take a break. Otherwise, you can continue the discussion. Okay, so 5 minutes. Over to you, Prashant.
Prashant, can you test your mic, please?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Is it clear? So I was going through some of the questions. There was a question about so SMC model. Basically, we have explained SMC model to compare with the Agile estimation model. SMC model is primarily used in SDLC life cycle process, where all the requirements are already predefined. Every component is identified, so that we go with SMC estimation. So whereas in Agile is the current estimation model. I think the Ravi Ranjan has already explained just now how Agile estimation is done. So we used SMC for just for comparison with the current Agile estimation methodology. I think there is a question: what is the difference between Agile, Safe Agile, and Scaled Agile? I think we'll cover it in the last slide, and we'll discuss on estimation. I mean, current what certification current industry is looking for. That also we'll discuss in the towards the end of the session. And so how important is for Scrum Master to know about the estimations? Sometimes the Scrum Master may not be technical enough to do this. So basically, I can give my example. My experience was primarily in banking domain, but for the last 2 years, I got an opportunity to work in power domain. Power domain is completely different. It is probably electric. Since computer science graduate, I do not know much about power domain. Probably electrical and mechanical engineers might know, but it also deals with gas turbines, steam turbines, heating values, and our power ratios and all that. It is deals with thermodynamics and all. It's a purely technical project. So as a new person to the domain, I joined as a Scrum Master as a new person to the domain. Initially, I did not understand, basically it took me a lot of time to understand the terminology. But within 2-3 months, as we observe, as we go through couple of cycles of these estimations, planning sessions and estimations, we'll understand actually what are the various processes involved. How it is done, what are the various parameters will be taken into the consideration. Even though it is difficult initially for Scrum Masters to understand the nitty-gritties of the process, but as we work with the team, we will understand and we'll be able to contribute also in the estimate. While we do not participate, we are only facilitator. We still be able to participate, help the team. If some new team member joins, we can provide the templates, what are the various tasks involved and things like that. A lot of questions are coming up, but whatever I say, I'm answering. In some companies, they are removing Scrum Master role for cost cutting and expected develop lead only paying Scrum Master role. So basically, Scrum Master role is that is a very valid point. So these days they are combining Scrum Master role with tech lead role. That is a valid point. But tech lead basically Scrum Master, but again contribution is very limited because tech lead will have to have his commitments. He has to direct the team. He has to do the code reviews. He has to at least contribute. If team is contributing 21 story points, again tech lead is expected to deliver at least 8 story points by himself, isn't it? So it is cumbersome and it won't give great value to the organization. Even though some organizations are doing that cost cutting measure, they will not see the benefit of a full agile process. That is the limitation. And there is one question: how does Scrum Master help product owner to split user stories? Ravi Ranjan, you want to take that?
Yeah. Okay. So you're able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the Scrum Master is basically a coach or a facilitator. He will make PO or the product owner or the team to help how to break the big stories into small stories, how to refine the stories. He will provide the process support or the importance of the splitting those big stories into user stories. So in that sense, a Scrum Master will not they help them to divide the logical division or the business requirement division. The Scrum Master has to go back to the stakeholders to understand details about the user story if he wants to break down logically, functionally, but how he has to the importance of breaking them into smaller things and the tools that are used, what way he can break so that will small increment can go into a product increment. So process wise, what makes sense to have a small increment in the product is explained by the Scrum Master. Functionally, that will be given by the stakeholders. So that's how the Scrum Master's role is basically a facilitator role, a coach role, to make sure that we are able to deliver small increments in each sprint. So that is a basic idea behind the having a Scrum Master. As Prashant was saying, many people don't understand the Scrum Master. They think Scrum Master is a waste of resource in the team or an additional burden. But those are the people with the limited understanding of the scope of Agile processes. If they don't buy in the Agile process, you will never be able to appreciate the work of a Scrum Master. Scrum Master is basically a champion. So it is like you have a coach in the football game. So what is the role of a coach? Coach is not seen anywhere in the field. The guy who is kicking the ball well, who is putting it in the goal, is a superstar. At the end of the day, people don't, if you don't understand, you and I may not understand the value of a coach. But there are the big teams which buy these football games. They pay millions of dollars to these coaches because these coaches are the people who gave them the strategies, who gave them the direction, who energize them, and motivate them. Finally, they are the success or failure behind the success or the failure of a team. So when the team fails in a season, in a game, the first person that will be fired is the coach. That is the power of a coach. Only when you understand the value of a coach, then you will give so much money to those coaches, even though they are not actually running on the field and straining their muscle to kick the goals and win the team. They are strategy people. Similarly, Agile concept, only when you understand the Agile concept and the role and importance of a Scrum Master to pull the team together and to make it a success, to make the team accelerate with a velocity, then you will really appreciate a Scrum Master. Those organizations will never fire a Scrum Master. The people who are firing are basically people who are transitioning from a SDLC to a Scrum model, and they are still grasping the concepts. Okay, let's move on. I think Agile estimations I told are the rough estimation, the story point estimations, and those can be changed. Okay, here velocity is one important metric that we all need to understand. To are you able to see my sharing?
No, it's not shared.
Not shared. Okay, sorry. Share screen. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now, yeah. So velocity is a very important metric. As I told you, velocity is simply the number of story points you deliver in a sprint. Number of story points you are delivered in a sprint. So to avoid the confusion, story point is basically a function point. Imagine like that. A function point, number of how many functions you are delivering to the product increment is what your velocity is. So for example, here, if you see this green one is what you delivered, the ash bar shows you what you have committed. So at the sprint planning, we thought, okay, we will take, some, 22 story points, but you delivered more. Okay. And then in the sprint 2, you delivered more than what it is. In sprint 3, you just delivered the commitment you gave. This takes 3 story points. I executed this. This is, we met the commitments. In the first case, it exceeded the commitments. In the third phase, we estimated some user stories. this is around 25 story points, but I was able to deliver only 22. So that means I am below my my target, or I estimated I can deliver 25, but I could not deliver. Okay, that's fine. Nobody is going to be questioning because it is a team. We all estimated, but we are not able to do. Okay, then we are able to do. So sprint 6, we see they are meeting the team is meeting the sprint, and the team 7 team is actually exceeding their commitment. So we also have a parameter called SRC, story completion ratio. Story completion ratio is how many stories you committed and how many you completed within the 2 weeks, 3 weeks time box you have. So if you see this graph, you observe. So most of the times, this team is exceeding its commitments, meeting its commitments. Maybe once it is below its commitment. So what do you think? This team is a good team, or it has any problem? What is the problem with the team? Or you think it's a team is doing good because they are meeting or exceeding their commitments? Okay, I will request you to answer in the chat window, and we will see. I'll give you some 10 seconds. People can respond. This team is good, or if you see any problem with the execution of this team. Okay, you can type in your answers in the chat window. Estimations might be getting wrong. Okay, perfect example. Great. Okay, problem in planning. Okay. Yes. Anything else? Anything else you think that this team is inconsistency performance? Okay, very good. Any other things? Okay, this is looking great. So team is overloaded with extra work outside the stakeholder. Okay. Okay, lack of time. Okay, well. Okay. Any other answers? One more, another 10 seconds.
We lost your sharing. You're sharing something?
Yeah. Yes. I did not share. I'm just seeing the chat window. All right. So yeah, let me show you the next slide. Then you will understand why I asked this question. This team is doing good in one sense. It is meeting its commitment and exceeding its commitment most of the time. Okay, but an ideal team, ideal agile team should be like this. So as we told in the beginning itself, a team is a continuous improvement team. Agile teams are self-organizing and self-sufficient, and they are continuous improvement teams. So in other words, what I'm saying is in the sprint 1, I took 3 story points. I finished 4 story points, close to 4 story points. And that means I exceeded the expectation. Very good. But in sprint 2, what I should take is I should take more, because now I became familiar with the project. I understand the environment. I fine-tuned my tools. I am gelling well with my team. This is a positive energy, full of positive help with each other. So sprint 2, I should deliver more than sprint 1 because I am improving. I'm getting more knowledge about the user, about the systems. In the sprint 3, I have more knowledge, more tools, and I should get more, I should take more points and deliver more. So a team, an agile team, a perfect and ideal team should continuously improve sprint upon sprint. That's what we call as a velocity. For the definition, you say velocity is number of story points. That's a good definition wise. But the logic behind why we call that as velocity is there is a delta increase of the number of story points that I deliver sprint after the sprint. If I am, so that's why in physics, you know, all right, speed is distance by time. Constant distance by time is equal to your speed. You are traveling at 60 kilometers per hour. In 1 hour, you will cover your speed of 60 kilometers. But velocity is not the speed. Velocity is the acceleration in your speed. That is delta x by t. Similarly, the team is continuously improving itself sprint after the sprint, adding more and more, delivering more and more sprint story points in each sprint is an ideal agile team. So that's why this is called velocity. Velocity For the definition is basically number of story points delivered in each sprint or in the entire release. You can average it out. But the hidden meaning behind calling it as velocity is Agile is a continuous improvement process. That as a team, you should deliver more in each sprint. If this team is actually delivering less, they're taking commitment less. If I am able to deliver 30 points, why I have taken 20 points only in the second sprint? That means I am not, becoming lazy here. I am not actually using my full potential. Here again, I increase my commitment. Again, I dropped my commitment. Sprint after the sprint, I am dropping my commitment. That means the team is either becoming lazy, they are not motivated, they are not doing estimations properly, they don't want to take more work, they want to relax. So this is a negative energy team. Okay, so this is a positive energy team where everybody is challenged, everybody is enthusiastic to take more work, deliver more, and give more to the customers. That is the whole philosophy of Agile. Okay, so now we are done with Agile estimations. Now we will go to progress tracking. These are very quick things. We will take another 10 minutes to finish this before we go into breakout sessions. Okay, so one other important metric that we do is burned down chart. Burned down chart. Burned down chart is basically how many story points I accepted to deliver in the beginning, in the sprint planning. I say I will deliver 30 story points. After 1 day, how many I am able to deliver? After 2 days, how many I am delivered? So like that, day by day, how many story points I delivered is plotted. I show what is remaining. I don't show what is delivered. See here, I have 30 points remaining, 25 points remaining, 20 points remaining. Finally, by the 10th day, I should not have any more story points to deliver. So this is a burned down chart. I always worry about what is there to execute in the bucket, not how much I have done. This is a change in the thought process in Agile. Traditionally, what we do is we report how much effort we spent. We report what we delivered. So what is already done, we generally report. We delivered effort, time, schedule deviations. But in Agile, we always tell them, okay, in order to meet the sprint goal, I have 10 more points to deliver. I don't tell how many I have already done, but I want to make sure that I meet my sprint goal. So I am always conscious about what is yet to be done, not about what is already done. That's a mindset change. Similarly, the next one is a very similar one. We do the burn down chart at a release level. At each sprint, how much I am delivering, whether I am behind the schedule or ahead the schedule, whether I am able to deliver all these story points in all of these sprints or not. If I am not able to deliver in this sprint, if I am not able to deliver these story points, that means your work will get increased in the future sprints, or your product may not be fully full feature product. Okay, so these two charts are very similar charts. This is at the sprint level, and this is at the release level. So that's all progress. Progress tracking is very simple. You keep tracking what features you delivered or what user stories delivered. That user story has 5 points. That means 5 story points are delivered. So you track the story points based upon the user stories completed as per the done definition. Okay, so we don't report on the number of hours we work or number of hours we are going to work. It is only whether we are able to deliver a feature, whether it is able to deliver a user story or not. So every calculation in Agile is on story point, not on the hours. Okay, this project tracking. So release planning is basically, we talked about this in our last session. We start with product vision and then a product roadmap, and then there is a release plan, a quarterly release plan, and a sprint plan we discussed today, and the daily Scrum. So this is how we start off with the planning. Initially, the product sponsor comes with a product vision. He calls for a planning meeting with the product owners and the stakeholders, comes up with an idea and the budget, and then he gives that to the product owner. From that time onwards, product owner owns the product. He calls the enterprise architecture team, design team, calls the stakeholders, they come up with a blueprint of the roadmap of different releases, roadmap of the architecture, overall guidelines to be followed, what technologies to be used, what tools to be used, what process to be used, all done at the enterprise level by the product owner. That is what we call as enterprise architecture meeting. So once that is done, product owner also brings that into quarterly planning. So in this quarter, what I'm going to release, what user stories I'm going to release, what epics are important, what epics are not important as per the market condition, what epics or features are the customers demanding to be released today. When we went to IGNO to do this product planning, to do a presentation, immediately after the meeting, the people started coming. They said, sir, we want this admission module to be ready immediately because this June is coming, admission time is coming. Forget about exams we have to some time. It comes in March. First finish the admission module so that we can use them and in the real life. So the users will tell you what are the features or the modules you need to implement in what timeline. So accordingly, you plan a quarterly plan, and that comes in as a feedback input to our sprint planning. So we already saw sprint planning, various things, and then we do this backlog grooming on a regular basis to continue to groom and refine our product backlog. So, okay, so that's all about the release planning. So as I told you, this in the Agile, this Agile methodology is a continuous improvement methodology. Secondly, it is a continuous integration and continuous deployment. As I told you, each sprint, output of each sprint is basically a product increment that I can put in the production environment. I should be able to deliver and put it in the production environment. If you want to put it in the production environment, what you should do, you should first integrate with the existing modules. Otherwise, it will bomb in the production. It will disturb everybody else. So there must be a continuous integration and a continuous deployment. Otherwise, Scrum model will fail, or you will not get the benefits of the Scrum model. If you want to maximize the Scrum model, every end of every sprint, every 2 weeks, you should be able to integrate, test it fully, and should be able to do it, release it into production. So to enhance this Scrum model, now people came up with a new concept called DevOps. So this is a general SDLC life cycle. We have requirements, design, development, test, and production support. So it goes on for a 3 months schedule, as I explained how they come up with the schedule. At the end of 3 months, they verify, they do the integration testing and UAT, and then move into production after 3 months. Okay, the product, nobody has a view about what has happened in these 3 months except the team. So what we have done over the years, this becomes big China walls. Okay, these requirements. Okay, the guys who do requirements are called business analysts. The guys who do design are called architects. The guys who do development are called devs and testers. And we built a big wall between each phase. Okay, the guys, architects, they don't touch code. The code guys don't do the testing. The testing guys do not touch the code. We have, test 1, test 2, senior test manager, test delivery manager, delivery test guy. So there is a big hierarchy we built within each of these phases in our organization. There are horizontal. It provides all testing. There is a testing career. So we have become a super special tester, a super special dev. That's how the software developed over the years. It is like earlier we have RMP doctors, then became MBBS doctors. Now we have special doctors, eye specialist, kidney specialist. Now we have super specialty. We have a pediatric ophthalmology. He will see only the eyes of children. He will not see the eyes of the adults. That is called super specialty. So like that, we have also built so much. And then we have, increased the overall workload. So all these 4 phases are called development. Once it goes into production, it is called operations. So there is no link between development and operation. What happens in operation, dev guy don't know. What is happening in the dev, operation guy don't know. Any production bug comes, operations guys will fix. If not, they will send back into the product backlog, and they will come and see it as a part of maintenance. So there is a big China wall between, there are Mexico wall between development and operations. With the advent of DevOps, now that all that walls are broken. So now Dev and Ops go hand in hand and automatically build and automatically deploy. That is called CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment. This is the model that is the future. We have to adopt this. We have to adopt Agile. Agile and DevOps go hand in hand. Now with this advent of this, so nobody can say, I am only a tester, I don't do anything else. Then you will lose your job tomorrow. We should be very flexible, very agile to do different types of roles in this changing environment. There are a lot of tools. Prashant will give you an overview of these tools that we have to implement DevOps. Okay, over to you, Prashant.
Yeah, I think, sorry, can you show the slide? Okay, a lot of team members, a lot of people who are working on projects, they must have used one or other tools actually. So probably I don't need to give a lot of explanation, but if there are any, I'll just briefly touch. Touch on these tools. Okay, first one is GitHub. I think most of you are familiar. Okay, that's where all the code repository resides and things like that. Confluence, I think project spaces is similar to Confluence. It is primarily for documentation. While we say that documentation is minimal, minimal in Agile, we still need to document a lot of things. What are the design patterns that we use, and what kind of solution we are providing for this specific specific functionality, like that. All those things we have to, even though it is minimal, this document, it has to be captured somewhere. So we use Confluence spaces. Even all the requirements are created as a Confluence space by product owners. There are a lot of other tools, project spaces. I think Docker, you are familiar. AWS is Amazon Web Services. I think a lot of you are familiar with AWS. AWS will provide a lot of services. They provide, they give us, EC2 instances, which are like virtual machines, or we can just buy storage. It is called S3. And when we create our user ID and buy some environment, they will give us, virtual private cloud. So we can, set up user IDs, set up security groups, set up, NCALs, basically, what IPs, which IPs are allowed, which is not allowed, and things like that. And Kubernetes, you are aware, Chef, Ansible, all these are various I think performance related tools, and Splunk NGOs and Datadog. I think these are all basically log management. If something is broken, we can always use the Splunk to see where the performance is, where we had performance issues, and we can go back and fix those issues. Jenkins and CodeShip are the main DevOps tools. Basically, these tools integrate all these other things. So Jenkins has got a lot of, I'll take an example of Jenkins. It has got a lot of plugins. It can integrate with Git, it can integrate with Docker, Chef, and Chef. Automatically it can integrate n number of tools. Here, basically in the screen, Selenium, you guys know SC, and JUnit, I think Java developers are already familiar. Maven and Gradle are other, these one, development automation tools. Actually, it Maven basically integrates all the various versions of the code that we use, and it seamlessly integrates and generates object code. So like this, these are only we have we are showing you only 20 products, but if you actually take if you just Google it, you will find hundreds of products supporting each of these areas. And a lot of these tools are open source tools, so you guys can take this as a snapshot and a lot of them are open source tools. So you can actually install them and try to understand how everything works. If anybody has any specific question on any of these tools, we'll answer them separately. Back to you.
Thank you, Prashant. Okay, so we will move on. Okay, so now we will have a very interesting thing. So we are around 70 people in the call. We will break into some 7 to 8 groups. Joseph will help you to go into the breakout session. Before that, I think I thank those people who did the assignments very well, and they sent a lot of user stories. We gave this assignment, and I'll explain in 2 minutes. Then we will go into breakout sessions. So the vision is to build an open university, and we have headquarters, and from there we have regional centers in each state, and from there we have study centers where they conduct the exams. The students enroll into the open university and take the classes and get the certificate and become part of the alumni. So it becomes a prospective student, becomes a student becomes a alumni. And students should be able to search, apply online, get admission. They should be able to attend digital or live or physical classes. They should be able to take online or physical exam. They should be able to complete a degree and get into a job. So we saw some of these admissions, some of the user stories for pre-admission and admission. So we gave this to you also in our last session. So now what we are going to do is we will break into multiple rooms. It is the time for you to talk. Now, so far you have been listening almost 1.5 hours. Now, within the team, you identify somebody as a Scrum Master, somebody as a product owner. You do a role play, and some people are a development team. So you can develop user stories together for a given epic. You will be given one epic, discuss about the user stories, and do the estimations using planning poker. You can type in your chat about your estimations. And then if somebody is having this laptop and Jira tool, they can actually go to Jira tool and enter those stories and enter those estimations also. So it is 11:58. We will come back into the main room at 12:20. Come back at 12:20. And now we can break into groups and make sure that you talk and express. It need not be user stories. You can talk about general questions, but mostly limit yourself to the epic given and to try to develop some user stories as a team and do the estimations together. So we'll break now and join back at 12:20. We will recap and also talk a little bit about the certification that are available in the market for Scrum. Okay, over to you, Joseph.
Yeah, so we will break out the rooms. You will get a pop-up saying that the host is inviting you to join a breakout session. You can just click on join. And as Ravi said, that we will be back at 12:20. So when you're just coming back, you will see that leave button. In that leave button, if you click, it will show two things: leave the session, breakout session, leave meeting. So click on the leave breakout session, not the leave meeting. Leave meeting will take you out of the meeting. So you leave breakout session, then you will be back to this main room. Okay. So you will see the pop-up. Just click on it. In each of the room, there will be at least one person who are identified and has access to Jira. So we'll be able to also see the Jira and do some user stories there. Okay.